Jaime from Inky&Scrappy, sharing with you today Great Pumpkin Believer. Long fonts to diorama, my take 4, making a shaped opening in the front, I guess. So using something other than the die that comes with the set to create that opening. So I don't have the inside out stitched pumpkin, which is fine. I try to avoid getting things that I really don't need because I have way more stuff than I will ever use, right? And so I'm trying to find stuff that's going to work in my stash instead of going out and buying the newest or, you know, the full set of something is what I do. So I pulled in an oval die here. The next one up in the set that I had was way too big for my opening. So I just ended up running this one through twice just to get my opening spot on the top part. Now, if I was going to do the full pumpkin on the front here and not have a bottom piece, I probably would have ended up cutting it out a couple more times or just taking a scissors and kind of cutting the bottom part there, which would have been easy enough. I could have definitely just traced it on the back side of this and cut it out that way as well. So if you don't have all of the dies, it's okay. You can make do with what you have on hand. So I am using a scrap from one of the last cards that I made with a red wagon, and so I wasn't planning on going red with this one, but it was a scrap that was sitting on my desk that hadn't made it into the trash bin yet because I wasn't sure if I was going to use it for something or not. It probably will go in the trash now. I need to try not to save all of the things, right? So for my front panel here, once I have my oval cut out that is going to fit my pumpkin over the top, I am just going to ink blend on top here. So I wanted a night sky, so I ended up going with chipped Sapphire Distress Oxide ink, and then I think that was Dusty Concord Distress Oxide ink, sorry. And then if you've been paying attention to my Instagram, yes, there's the dish of all of the Brutus Monroe Aqua Pigment in Violet Frost that I saved from my spill last week. It dried out. I just re-wet it. I will be using that a lot. Expect it often. So because I did the front panel, I'm like, well, I obviously am going to need a back panel. So if I'd have thought about it beforehand, I probably would have done them at the same time. But since I didn't, I ended up going and cutting that background panel out and inking it the same way that I did the front, bringing in that front to make sure that, you know, it pretty much lined up for the most part there. So once I was happy with that, I did add a little bit of black soot onto my hills that will go into my ta-da diorama, just so it kind of has that night look to it as well. So you know how you go and you die cut all the pieces that you think you're going to need and you start throwing them on your desk and you walk over to your desk when you're all done and you're like, what did I just do? Yeah, that was me right there. So I'm going to start by, I kind of started at the top of my pile here. So I cut down I cut out the side panels there, and then I ended up going ahead and doing the little boots on them, folded them up, and then for my front, I actually wanted it to be orange because I wanted the part that covered the pumpkin to match my pumpkins for the rest. So I'm just going here with a Sharpie style, I think it was a Copic fine liner, and I actually ended up just marking right on my little guillotine cutter the measurements because I'm going to be using those measurements a lot and I hate having to remeasure every time. So this way it's just easier, and being that those side panels were black, it was super easy to just trace and color. So they are already on there for the next time I decide to do a front panel that is not, you know, the side panels. And I did it that way because I didn't want the sides on this one to be orange. I wanted them to be dark or black or to match my sky. And so it was easier just to do them in black and then put the orange on the front. So, and for this one, I'm not worried about stuff hanging off of it. I will find an envelope to fit I ended up putting this one on an A2 size card. I do have some stuff that's hanging off the top on that finished card, which if it's not going to fit in an envelope well, I can cut it off when I get that far. I'll meet that bridge when I get there, right? So I, again, cut out a scrap of paper here, trying to use, I am horrible at throwing stuff out that it looks like I might be able to die cut something from. So I tend to cut out, if I know that I'm just going to need a little piece of something, I will die cut it from a scrap and then just cut off what I need. It's how I roll. It's like being frugal. I don't know. It's what I'm good at. Just, you know, because I don't have any paper in my stash. Ha ha ha. But I try to use all of the little pieces. And then for my wagon here, because I wanted the big pumpkin to be in the wagon, so I'm actually using the pumpkin wagon as a pumpkin wagon. I think this is probably the first time I've ever used it as a pumpkin wagon. I know. You know, yeah. So here is going to be my hot tip for you. So I wanted tone and tone. So you see how I ended up doing the pumpkins on this one, and it was so much easier to line that up with doing that double layer on the top of the wagon to get my pumpkins to sit in there. It was amazingly easy to do it that way. I'm glad that I ended up doing it that way. So if that's something you struggle with and you want to do a tone on tone, have at it. So after I added that first orange piece in my pumpkin, I decided it needed a little bit of shading on it. I just thought it was too bright, too clean, being that my background panel is all ink blended and blackened up around the outside. I felt the pumpkins in the wagon needed that same look. So I'm just going in with whatever black is left on my blending brush there. And then I didn't like it a lot. So I'm like, how can I fix this? So I brought in the sparkle. You saw me with the Nouveau. I think it's the Nouveau glitter brush. So I'm like, I'll just go over it with glitter. It'll kind of weaken that black. Some of them just got a little bit too black. And so that was kind of my fix for it. Can I just say, those little teeny tiny pumpkin pieces? Oh. So I almost went and cut out the back of the pumpkin wagon a second time in orange to put that behind the pumpkins. I wish I would have. So if that is something you struggle with, are those itty bitty teeny tiny pieces, yeah, that would have been a huge time saver there, because it took me a long time to find all of the pieces, because I wasn't great at keeping them all together when I did it, and then just piecing them back in. It was just, I wish I would have done it the other way. But once I had it that far, it was a little too late. So for my little pieces here, it was just faster to color them with some Oohoo markers in the tones that I wanted. So I did a little bit of, I couldn't find the actual image. I don't know if there's a pumpkin or a wagon in Charlie Brown's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. But when I looked online, the old toy wagon for the Charlie or Peanuts gang was blue, and so that's why my wagon ended up being blue here. I did bring in a lighter shade of blue to kind of give it a little bit lighter tone on the inside there, if you're wondering what I did. And then for this one, because my pumpkin was so high up, I needed a little bit of a lift on my wagon. So I just brought in some scraps from the pumpkin wagon piece that I had cut out in white. And then I'm coming in with that Nouveau Glimmer brush pen thing and putting it on all of my pumpkin stuff. So those orange panels are going to have it. And then, of course, the pumpkins here are going to have it, and then my other pumpkins in the wagon have it. So this is what I mean when I should have done the orange on the pumpkin wagon. You see how fast this is? It's tone on tone. I could do the ink blending on the bottom of this one. I could do the coloring on the top. It was just super quick and easy to put those ones together. So all of the rest of those little scraps can go in the garbage, and I don't have to fiddle with them. So I'm adding my glittered orange cardstock here. And yes, I did slow this down for you because it's only the 4th time I've put this together. I'm still struggling at which side goes where. You will see me in a little bit. I don't know why I think the two ends should butt together and not the middle should butt together when I'm putting it. Yeah, you see me? Like, this is not how, what? Yeah, yeah. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. It goes on the side. It is what it is. So once I have my first one down, this is pretty simple. I like using liquid glue as opposed to double-sided tape. It just holds fast and, you know, it holds well for me. And I don't feel that I need the double adhesive on this one. And yes, every time I do the little inserts here, I still want to cheat it and not fold them down. And every time it kicks me in the butt and I need to fold them both down and squeak them in there. So, you know, yeah. Because in my head, I should just be able to finagle at least one half of that in there without having to fold it down. It never works that way for me. Anyways, so I'm going to put in both of my hills here. And yes, these were the Diorama hillside add-on. I'll use them because I have them. I don't know if it's a necessary purchase. I definitely could have just made my own hills. But it is what it is. So once I have this together, it's looking like I was hoping it was going to look. And so I need to finish the rest of the things. I had yet to add in my brackets for this one. And so I did use that super heavy cardstock. I'm just using a scrap because nobody's really going to see it anyways. So I don't mind using, you know, oopsies for this type of thing. Now, I will say on this one, I was not great at my folding and gluing. And so the one is a little bit like cockeyed and it's not a straight line fold. And it ends up causing a couple of issues when I put it all together. So you will see me struggle with the other side and a little bit here. So it's just that it's a teeny tiny, like, I don't know, I probably didn't fold it quite on the score line, and then when I put it on, it wasn't square with my card, so there was a little bit of an angle, so it was like sticking, which I guess is good because a lot of people have a hard time when they like pop out, and this one just wasn't. So I do end up coming and fixing that a little bit later. So I'm bringing in Ink Road Stamps, The Gang Halloween stamp set. I don't believe this one is currently in stock, but if you like it, put it on your wish list, and that is how Laura from Ink Road Stamps decides if she's bringing them back from retirement, and then you get an email notification if it comes out of retirement. So it's, you know, it's how she does it for a small business. It works for her, and I love all things peanuts, so of course I had to have it. And of course it was the Halloween one, so I had to have it. Anyways, so Linus is sitting in the pumpkin patch with his little welcome great pumpkin sign. And then I'm just finagling it around. So originally I kind of thought I might have to cut the little, I don't know, the second set of, or you know, like the detail brackets on the pumpkin. So it just would have been like the outside border of the pumpkin on the front. But I was hoping that I could get away with it, and so I waited to cut it off until I absolutely would have had to. And I'm so glad that I waited, because I could sneak Linus in there without having to cut that little detail off, and I like it. I just like it that much more, I think, because it doesn't hinder or doesn't mess with the whole stitched detail and all of the things. So you saw there, I just kind of shaved off a little bitty piece of the top there on the one side, and it works a lot better this way, or it goes into my bracket a lot better and opens and closes is a lot easier. So I had thought about putting my sentiment over the top of the wagon, and then I decided, you know, I'm just going to put this one on an A2 size card. I'll find a paper that coordinates with it and put my sentiment on the bottom there. So because I had cut out all of the little curly Q pieces that come with the inside, or no, this one's the stitched pumpkin frame, I decided I needed to add them. So I added some into the inside of my card, but because the pumpkin and the wagon cover up a lot of the real estate that would be on the inside of the ta-da diorama, I felt that it would just be a waste to put those other pumpkins on the inside. And so I kept that one fairly minimal. And then I ended up adding these little swirlies on the top here. I could have added, I suppose, a couple more to the bottom underneath the wagon or around the wagon. Real life confession, I could not find my double side or my reverse tweezers. I have 3 of them. I don't like one of them, so I don't use it. It's the old Makey Memory ones. It's just fat and bulky. So I ended up burning my finger, or I don't know, putting my finger into wet, hot embossing powder here. I just reheated it with the embossing tool and it ended up working out. So I did slip in my die cut shape here. This is Lawn Fawn's simple sentiment banner. I made a template using some heavy cardstock, all the ones that I like to use a lot, and then of course a super cheap Cricut style off-brand mat from Amazon, and I cut it down to fit in my Misty. The template does not move off of that, but it works great because then they stick into the little holes and I don't have to worry about magneting them. I don't have to worry about cutting them after I've already stamped and embossed them. It just works well. I pulled in some Carta, I want to say this is Farmer's Market, possibly, paper for my background pattern paper here. I am going to pop up my sentiment using some foam tape from Crescent Creations. It's that double thickness stuff, so it's got a little extra height to it. I just figured with the ta-da diorama it sticks out, or it's, you know, closer to the same level as that ta-da diorama when it is closed. And then I will come in and add those other 2 pumpkins that I had already had done for this one. And this is where those reverse tweezers really would have come in handy as well. So I ended up pulling it up, getting it back underneath there, and then of course gluing it back down. So I am pretty happy with this one here, how it turned out. So, you know, this was my, oh, I'm all done with it, right? And then I was like, well, I need to put something on the inside. So I brought in that stamp set again, and I'm going to use the sentiment that says, "Tonight the great pumpkin will rise out of the pumpkin patch. He flies through the air and brings toys to all the children of the world." See, that's probably why Halloween is my favorite holiday, because I was fed lies about the great pumpkin being just like Santa Claus. Just kidding. It's my favorite holiday because you get to dress weird and there's candy involved. And I love candy. So I also did add on there the Snoopy on top of the great pumpkin or his giant jack-o'-lantern. And of course, Woodstock. So there finishes up my Great Pumpkin Believer card featuring Lawn Fawn's ta-da diorama and some stamps from Ink Road Stamps and all of that inky goodness that Distress Oxides create. So I hope you have an amazing day. Keep getting inky, and spooky season is upon us. This is where, remember, I was probably supposed to tell you to like, subscribe, comment, all of those things to help the channel grow.